up, everybody? Ben Raza here for Odd Chopper, bringing you my favorite PGA picks over on PrizePicks for this week's start of the FedEx Cup playoffs, where at the St. Jude Championship, we're going to get a lot in here in a quick amount of time. I'm going to give you my three favorite bets, show you how to link them up over on PrizePicks, talk about the money that can be made over there, and as well talk a little about this course. If you're hopping in for the first time, checking out this channel, welcome to Odd Chopper. We've got you covered for all things sports, whether it's PGA, MLB, obviously NFL, college football, you know it. Like and subscribe, please support it, and check out all the other videos we have here. Let's dive into this FedEx St. Jude. I almost said classic. It's the championship now. It was the Invitational. Used to be a WGC, but we've seen this course a ton. Tight, technical, a lot of water lurking in Memphis. This is something that I think could play a role here when I look at TPC South. When I look at what we need to do, I'm going to lean on some iron players, guys that are able to work in and out of trouble. These thick Bermuda lies can be troublesome at times. I don't think it's going to be a crazy scoring fest like we've seen the last couple weeks. I definitely think when you're looking at PrizePicks and trying to make these wagers, you have to keep in mind what the conditions could be and how we plan accordingly. So when I look at this course, certainly we're going to have a lot of breakdowns across the channel, but that is really what I'm honing in on in terms of skill sets and things that I want. Now, let's dive into the picks. My first pick went to PrizePicks, and I love the birdies or better category. What that means, you're going to have a matchup of how many birdies the guys will make. Then they have birdies or better matchup where it's one-on-one, two players who makes more birdies in the first round, and that's where I'm going to get my video started here. Going to my man, Rory McIlroy is on the list. He is matched up with Viktor Hovland. Who will have more birdies in round one, Rory or Hovland? I'm going with Rory, of course. Why? Because Rory is Rory, and he's just a better player. He's been absolutely fantastic all year. No, he did not win a major. Yes, he was extremely close at the Open. He was 5th at the U.S. Open, 8th at the PGA, 2nd at the Masters. Guy is just a walking top 10. He did win in Canada. Tee to green is just dominant. The putter comes and goes, but he's just...
It sort of just depends where you are. Like I think we have a mobilized service too, but you know, when you're in Vegas or something, obviously the play is take that to you.
Yeah, I think like the individual hotels advertise like who to call,
as they should.
My sister is like, I think you're just trying to get out of the bachelor party. I was like, no, I'd much rather get out of your wedding, considering it's the day before week 1 of the NFL.
For sure. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB strategy / live before lock show. Technically live before lock for the early slate. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher, and we are brought to you by PrizePicks. 6-game slate for today. We're going to break down all the early stuff, take you guys up to 1:15, so it should be a pretty good time. In the meantime, hit that,
since that's when the first game starts.
There we go. 1:10, whatever works. Perfect. I'd rather give those 5 minutes back. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, what's good?
How's it going, man? Always enjoy these live before lock shows. Changes it up a bit, so you'll get half of my attention, and in exchange, we'll maybe actually know who I'm playing.
I think we'll be all right for today. Early slates tend to be pretty easy from a prep standpoint. Like we know that we're going to be getting those late lineups, so you kind of just have to start at like 12:45 and then deal with it afterwards. So should be fun. How did last night go for you? Did you just load up on Rockies like we thought was very obvious?
No, I did not. Last night was okay as far as like I broke even because I won cash games, so that was nice. Michael Chavis coming through big, but yeah, tournaments weren't great because for one, I played the like $1,200 three max double Q, didn't win that, so that puts you in a hole. And then on top of that, I had a lineup issue where my 10% Luis Castillo on the Mariners became 10% Luis Castillo on the Tigers, so had some dead lineups there, but made it back in cash.
Yeah, I dodged that bullet. Luckily, I only had him in 1 of 150, so that helped. Manoah ended up being not what I needed, but I basically didn't have the Rockies, and that was the easiest shortcut to winning a GPP. You had some outs if you had a Brave stack. You could get there without having a primary Rockies stack, but ultimately didn't matter. Didn't have the Rockies, and they went nuts. Very annoying too. Very annoying.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal. I ended up with a lot of Braves. Cardinals came in. I think I was like around the field. I had a lot of like 20 to 30% guys, but I think it was a lot of just like filler in other stacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely had a lot of Braves. I don't remember who else I had a lot of. I know I was overweight on the Dodgers, but yeah, I was overweight on the Red Sox. That one surprised me.
Yeah. I don't have much else here. 6 games. Like I said, we got plenty of time to break it all down. So I'm ready to dive in if you are.
Yep.
We are likely going to be taking a bunch of questions at the end. So if you got anything that's interesting, hit us with it in a bit. Mets and Reds, first game up. 5.5 run implied total for the Mets, 3.3 for the Reds. Taijuan Walker and TJ, is it Zoik?
Zook, I'm pretty sure.
Zook, whatever. We're not playing him. Walker, what'd you say?
Former Toronto Blue Jay.
Got it. Well, current guy that I'm not going to roster at all. So Taijuan Walker, 23% owned right now. And that is exactly where I have him. Not a big fan of Walker and not the best DFS arm, generally speaking, but getting to face the Cincinnati Reds certainly helps.
Yeah, it does. And it being a shorter slate helps as well. Not pitching in Cincinnati is nice. And 8,400 is just a reasonable price tag for him. You know, he's not a bad pitcher by any stretch. He's not somebody that you're typically going to get a lot of on full slates, especially when he's pretty close to correctly priced. But for the season, he has only an 18.7% strikeout percentage with a 3.94 xFIP. Strikeout percentage should come up in this matchup against the Reds. In the top pitchers tool, we have him at 19.5% of being top 2, 23.5% projected ownership. So everything looks pretty good there as well.
Do you see any opportunity to roster Ron Zook or
TJ?
whatever the hell his name is? Yeah.
What was Ron Zook, the Illinois football coach or something?
He was the Florida coach for a bit. I don't know where else he ended up after that.
Yeah, I remembered Florida too. I don't really think so on Zook. There is actually good pitching on this slate, so and the matchup against the Mets is obviously brutal.
Yeah, I got precisely 0. I'm willing to go ahead and skip that. The bigger talking point that we have in this one is pretty obvious. It's the Mets. They have the highest implied run total on the slate. Again, 6-gamer. Number 1 in our top stack tool at 20%. Number 1 in our ownership at 19%. They were number 1 in my top stack tool as well. I understand why these guys are getting a ton of ownership. And I'm not going to be mad if I have it. I'm a little oddly spread out. Like I've got a bit more Alonso, but not nearly as much Nimmo. What do you want to do with New York in general today?
I mean, I think it's a good spot for them. They are far and away the highest in the top stacks tool at 20%. 19% ownership is reasonable. Not the same sort of value you're getting in some other spots, but I don't think that's going to matter all that much here. Typically with the Mets lineup as well, and it's the case today, you do get some value spots. You know, the guys at the top, Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso are really expensive. If you go Vogelbach over Alonso, you can save some money that way. Kana at 4K is reasonable. The bottom of the order is not great. So they are relatively expensive, but I do think it's a good spot. They have an implied run total north of 6 right now.
Cash game guys we're going to be getting here. I'm assuming Nimmo and Lindor are right away primary cash game options. That's certainly in the mix. Both guys 25% plus owned at the moment. Does that make sense to you?
What was the question? I was answering a cash game question.
That was the question as well. Nimmo and Lindor looking like potential cash game options here. I mean, there's obviously more from the Mets as well that you can be getting to, but feels like Nimmo and Lindor stand out the most.
Yeah, and then I think one of the first basemen is probably pretty likely to be in there too.
Yeah, I'm getting to more Alonso than Vogelbach right now. Both of those. So when you look at that, we have Alonso 18% owned. We have Vogelbach 18% owned. Do you see that and think like, I'll probably get more of X just off the top of your head?
Not necessarily, because it really just depends on how salary goes with the rest of the lineups.
Kind of what I figured. So just checking. No problems with the ownership here. I'm guessing pitching salaries probably don't matter all that much to getting to the Mets, although Justin Steele and Paul Blackburn are pulling 37% ownership in the aggregate. Guessing one of those guys with a Mets stack will be a pretty popular build.
Yeah,
I don't have much else to add here. Like to me, it's pretty clear that the Mets are the number one stack, and I don't think it's particularly close. I just don't know how different is it to see the Mets on a day like today for 6 games than it was for the Cardinals yesterday on 14?
I think it's similar, just in that you're still comparing top stack percentage to chances of being optimal and or ownership. So yeah. I still think it's a similar spot where like maybe I get to more 2-mans and 3-mans. Somebody in chat asked about TJ Zook's ground ball percentage and if that's a concern. I mean, I would rather he not have a good ground ball percentage, but he does have 49 major league innings under his belt with a 5.27 xFIP, 1.65 home runs per 9. 5 starts at AAA for the Cardinals this year, had a 5.15 xFIP, 3.15 in his 5 starts for the Reds. But we've got enough of a track record on this guy just not being very good that the way I kind of view that, like when you have a guy that isn't very good but does have one good quality, is that he's still pitching in the major leagues. Like you're not getting guys that actually are like physically incapable of getting outs. They're typically going to do at least something well. So if you're going to start pointing to like the one good quality about somebody and using that as like a reason to not get to them, you're going to have a really hard time getting to any hitters.
Yeah. DeMar Davis says, don't stack the Mets. Could have saved us a lot of time here.
80% of the time, probably going to be right.
Yeah. Sex Panther, man. On the opposite side, we have the Reds, and we know that they suck. And that's a true statement, but this is a 6-game slate. There's only 12 options from a stack perspective. Taijuan Walker is in a quarter of the lineups that are out there right now. Reds are 10th in our top stack tool, 10th in ownership, but number 2 in value. They were my number 1 value. How much more interesting is Cincinnati on a day like today?
Certainly more than they would be on a smaller slate. Again, like I don't personally care all that much about Walker's ownership, but it's just naturally going to push the Reds up a little bit because it naturally pushes their ownership down if people are playing Walker. And then just the lack of opportunity cost since you only have 6 games. And there are a lot of good pitchers going today as well. Walker has a lot of 169 expected ISO to lefties, 154 to righties this year. So there is some potential power there. The issue is just when you look at the Reds lineup, where are you going for that power? I mean, Joey Votto, 3,500 from the left side, Jake Fraley, 2K flat. Those and Papierski is a switch hitter. So those are the only left-handed hitters in the lineup. You just don't have a lot of power here. Jonathan India is 4,800, so he didn't get the same price decrease that everybody on the Reds has outside of him. So it's a 12-game slate. It's a team that overall is a good value spot, but certainly nothing I'm excited about.
Yeah, I'm not happy about it either. I do have a bit of the Reds on the first dummy crunch that I ran, and this is all gonna I'll run another crunch in, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. I got 3 5-man red stacks, 5 4-man red stacks. So I am getting to at least a little bit of them, which is fine. On 6 games, I'm probably going to have at least a bite at most teams. And especially in situations where, not that it's a priority or anything, but Walker being in a quarter of the lineups is just naturally going to make the Reds slightly more appealing on a day like today. I don't think I'm over the field on any of their main guys though, and I'm pretty happy about that because they're awful.
They are.
I don't have anything else here other than just I think the Mets are pretty clearly the top stack today. What you do with them and the way that you rotate around them is going to be the tricky part.
Yep, completely agree.
There we go. All righty. Schedule for the rest of the day. We have a lot going on today, actually, at 2 p.m. So about 45 minutes after we finish our show. NFL Week 1 DraftKings first look. These guys are breaking down the salaries for DK for Week 1 in the NFL. That's pretty exciting. NFL is going to be here shortly, so get ready for that. Get a little bit of a preview in now. MLB Deeper Dive at 5 p.m. for the main slate. MLB Live Before Lock at 6 p.m. for the main slate. And then PGA Live Before Lock tonight at 8 p.m. for the FedEx St. Jude. I know I will be watching. I am playing golf tomorrow. I can't wait. Golf was fun last week. Definitely want to do it again. I'm already in Showdown as well. I'm diving into all sorts of weird stuff nowadays. Good times. Yeah, tennis this morning, which is already dead. Took about an hour before some underdog ran through somebody like 6-1, 6-1 or some nonsense. Just total ass beating in and out, gets it over with. And surprise, surprise, I don't have that person at all. What are you going to do? Oh, free content, by the way. MLB ownership projections are free today, as are our PGA rankings. So if you're playing baseball DFS, you're in luck. Our ownership projections will be there for you. If you're looking to dip your toe in the water of golf, those PGA rankings will be free for you today. Brewers and Rays. 4-run implied total for the Brewers, 3.3 for the Rays. Brandon Woodruff and Jeffrey Springs. Woodruff, probably the star here, 9,600, most expensive pitcher on the slate, and to me, pretty clearly the best option on today's slate. On the opposite side, Springs is 7,700, pulling 14% ownership. Seems about right to me. Let's start with Woodruff, 45% owned. Any disagreements?
No, I have him as the top pitcher by like 4 points ahead of anybody else, so I think it's likely I just end up getting there as well.
Yeah, I've showed up in about 50% of my lineups on my first go, so I will certainly be with the field. I doesn't really matter who they're playing on a day like today. Just getting to someone of Woodruff's stature is going to be the guy that we're looking for. I think the more interesting piece to talk about, because obviously everybody gets playing Woodruff. What do you think about Springs on the opposite side? The Brewers offense probably worse than the Rays. More strikeouts in the Brewers lineup that I see. 7,700 for Springs seems pretty interesting to me.
I don't think the Brewers offense is worse than the Rays, but I do think you can go to Springs. Like, he's a good pitcher. He's still only 7,700, 25.4% strikeout percentage, 3.31 xFIP this year. It is a park downgrade for him going into American Family Values Field or whatever it is. But a 27.9% strikeout percentage against righties, 142 expected ISO. He's got a really good changeup. He throws it a lot. It helps neutralize right-handed bats. The Brewers are loading up right-handed bats against him. So there is power in this lineup. You know, it is still a scary spot when you have Adames and Renfroe. Keston Hiura's back up, which is kind of a free strikeout, but also somebody that has some power. But Springs has been able to navigate his way through righties this year. So I think he does look like a good mid-range play here. There is plenty of upside. He's getting a bit less ownership than Walker, which I guess makes sense given that Walker has the matchup against Cincinnati. But yeah. Looking at the top pitchers tool, 19.6% chance of being top 2 for Walker, 18.2% chance for Springs. So basically the same, and Springs getting like 60-ish% of the ownership that Walker is getting makes Springs look more appealing to me.
I'm gonna go back to what I said to start and say that the Brewers offense is worse than the Rays. Given the fact that it's a 7/10 of a run gap, they're at home and it's Woodruff on the hill, I think that more than makes up for that gap.
I mean, the Rays lineup is dog shit.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying I think it's better than the Brewers. If it weren't, I think this line would be a lot bigger of a gap.
I mean, Springs is a good pitcher.
Sure, but I mean, he's not nearly as good as Woodruff.
Sure. Like, yeah, I mean, I think the Brewers lineup is just better.
I mean, even if we just put this on a neutral, like the gap between, like the run gap here would close pretty considerably.
Looking at active roster and not actual lineup, Milwaukee has the 9th best WRC plus in baseball this year at 110. Tampa Bay is at 18th at 104. 152 ISO for Tampa, 188 ISO for Milwaukee.
Sounds like you should bet the Brewers.
I mean, I'm not talking about this game or matchups or anything. I'm just saying that the hitters in Milwaukee's lineup are better than the garbage Tampa Bay's running out since they're missing like 3 of their regular starters.
Very true there. All right, let's talk bats. We'll go to the Brewers since they're more highly owned. 8th in our top stack tool, 8th in ownership. Oddly enough, I actually had the Brewers 4th for today, quite a bit ahead of us. How do you feel about Milwaukee here against Springs?
Not great. I think there is right-handed power in this lineup, like I was saying, Adames in particular, but he's also 5,300. Renfroe at 5,200 looks pretty good. First base outfield eligibility for Keston Hiura is kind of interesting. I'm pulling it up now to see how he actually was doing at AAA this year because he is a highly regarded prospect, or was a highly regarded prospect, and kind of just hasn't been very good in the majors so far, but certainly, has the underlying talent. AAA this year still striking out 25% of the time. In the majors this year, striking out an amazing 43% of the time. So doesn't seem to have really fixed at least the strikeout issues, but does still have some power as well. And he's pretty cheap. So I think that there is upside for Milwaukee, but I also just do have a lot of respect for Springs because as I said before, 273 expected WOBA, 142 expected ISO to righties is pretty solid.
This is one of the teams I have a bit more than the field on. 14% of my lineups are stacked with Brewers. We've got 7% aggregate ownership going to the Brewers. I'm at about 12 right now. In particular, the top of this order is, and that shouldn't be all that surprising. If I were telling you that I was jamming in the bottom of the order, it would be a lot worse. Yelich, Adames, McCutchen, Brousseau, and Renfroe, all double digits, mostly in the mid-teens, basically like 15% on average across all of those guys. Still getting to a little bit of the bottom, but looks like I'm going to be over on the Brewers, at least as of right now. Not something that I'm particularly excited about. So I'm kind of hoping Springs pulls a little bit more ownership. What about the Rays side of this one? No ownership.
By the way, not sure if you were paying attention to chat, but one of the better typos I've seen in a while. Somebody said his FanDuel was glitching and that he was attempting to say it was removing the White Sox players, but it said the Whites players.
Yeah, I mean, it is baseball, so I would be trying to remove the white players as well. In most sports, you're going to be better off not rostering the whites. Unless it's, I don't know, what would we be
hockey.
Good at? Yeah, hockey gets you there.
Yeah. As far as the Tampa Bay side, really, really difficult, I think, to get there. Especially because like Brandon Lau didn't even get any sort of a price discount. It would be one thing if you got like the Brandon Woodruff special and Lau was like 4,200 and you could say like, okay, well, the matchup's accounted for, but I have a really difficult time paying full freight for Brandon Lau in this spot.
I'm intrigued by the fact that they're 10th in top stack and 12th in ownership, but it's just so difficult to want to go up against Woodruff here.
Yes, it is. I'm sure Sean will.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously on a 6-game slate, it's way more, I don't want to say defensible because it's what he's doing is defensible at all times for him. But it makes getting to something like that is way more feasible on a day like today.
Yeah.
Just by default, honestly. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't have anything else here. I'm surprised that I'm really surprised that the Brewers run total 4 is bleak. Maybe I just need more Springs and I'll feel a little bit better about it.
I'll say, my answer most likely is just going to be playing more Springs.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with that. All right, let's go Cubs and Nats.
What'd you say? Massive gap between him and Walker, so that makes me less confident.
You have a massive gap between who and Walker?
Springs and Walker.
Okay. I have Walker at 16.2. I have Springs at 14.7.
17.4 and 14.9.
Okay. Wow, you're very heavy on Walker then.
Yeah, it's another spot where I personally don't feel that way, but
yeah,
also don't make lineups with my brain. So
I've got somebody that I'm very heavy on, a pitcher that is way above the field. So I'm anxious to see if we end up in the same spot. Let's go Cubs and Nats. 4.3 run implied total for the Cubs, 3.2 for the Nats. Justin Steele going for Chicago, Josiah Gray going for Washington. Both of these guys are pulling some ownership. 21% to Steele at 6,200, 16% to Josiah Gray at 8,100. I am way under the field on both of these guys. 8% of Steele and just 3% of Gray. Start with whatever side you want. How do you feel about the pitching here? What's your priority if you have one?
I think the pitching looks okay. It is a good matchup for Steele. Washington, not a great strikeout matchup, but also not a very good offense. Steele right now projected for 21% ownership, 20% chance of being a top two pitcher, but also a 36.5% chance of being a top two value at 6,200. It's somebody that, he's going to allow you to get to those expensive Mets bats, for example. So I think he makes some sense there. So far this year, strikeout stuff hasn't been great for him. He's only striking out, or no, he's actually been better. 23% strikeout percentage overall. He does have pretty substantial splits, 20.7% strikeout percentage against righties, 30.1% against lefties, but he hasn't given up much production to either side. 103 expected ISO to righties, 314 expected WOBA. The lineup for the Nats does skew right-handed, which isn't surprising. The only two lefties in there are Luis Garcia and Yadiel Hernandez. So I don't think it's a great strikeout spot for him, but he's just really cheap and you don't necessarily need those strikeouts. On the other side for Gray, he's projected for 16% ownership, 17% chance of being a top two pitcher. He is a good strikeout pitcher, and he does have a matchup here against the Cubs where there are strikeouts to be had. He's struck out 26.7% of hitters this year. The issue is he's also allowed 2.38 home runs per nine while walking 10% of hitters. It's just a really, really boom or bust pitcher in a spot against the Cubs team that has plenty of power and also strikes out plenty. So I do think it's kind of interesting in the sense that he's getting less ownership than guys like Walker and Sean Manaea, but also he's still close. I think I'd be a little bit more interested in Gray if Taijuan Walker was getting 30-35% ownership as opposed to 23-24.
Right now I'm avoiding most of this pay down stuff. I'm neutral on Blackburn, but like I said, lighter on Steele. Just instead of burying the lead, I'm getting to a lot of Cortez.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Toussaint.
No, I'm getting a lot of Nestor Cortez. And so it appears that I'm just paying up more for pitching, which I assume is going to unlock me saying that I'm getting to some sort of cheap ass stack that I don't want in the near future. Looks like that's the Giants based on my top value metric and where I see my exposure. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But right now, yeah, I'm well under on both of these guys. And I wouldn't mind at all getting to more Steele. I'm honestly a little surprised that I'm not. Lowest implied total on the slate for the Nats. I just don't have him going deep enough into the game, and I think that's really what's slowing him down. Not that I don't have, I've got him projected pretty well. I've got these guys projected exactly the same.
I have Steele by a point.
Okay.
I think Gray is more likely to break the slate. I think Steele projects median projection is a little bit higher.
I think that's reasonable.
Because
Gray's just got better raw stuff.
Right. I would be much less surprised if you're just looking at your lineups, 3 hours from now saying, all right, need to find Josiah Gray lineups because you can't win without him, than if it's Justin Steele.
Right. Well, let's talk bats. Opposite side of Gray and his 16% ownership is the number 4 stack on today's slate. They're also 4th in value and 3rd in aggregate ownership. How do we manage a team like the Cubs today who's sort of just mildly good at both categories and the ownership is there?
I think it's still a high upside spot, just given how much power Gray is allowed. In particular, he struggled with lefties this year. 261 expected ISO, 352 expected WOBA to lefties, 167 expected ISO, 290 expected WOBA to righties is much more reasonable. You don't have much left-handed power in this lineup. There's only 3 left-handed hitters at all. 2 of them are Ortega and McKinstry, who don't really have a lot of power. Ian Happ individually, I think, looks really good, but I really don't mind going to power hitting righties here either. Fremnil Reyes is probably just going to strike out every time he steps into the batter's box, but he's 2,900. He can hit the ball far. Suzuki, I like at 4,300. He's got plenty of power. He's a good hitter. So I think it's a weak bottom of the lineup here, and you just have so many right-handed hitters that I think it does just set up better for Josiah Gray than it does for the Cubs. But that Ortega, Happ, Reyes, Suzuki, Horner 1 through 5, I think is pretty reasonable.
A little light on the Cubs. I am getting to that top section though, so I don't feel too bad about it. The problem really for me is just outfield, 1 through 4.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
It's way, way, way harder to get to a stack like that when the first 4 spots in the lineup all play the exact same position. You couldn't roster them all even if you wanted to.
Yeah, especially when the bottom of the order is relatively weak as well. It's not like you have, a
Right.
7-hitter that you're like, oh, well, I really like playing this guy anyway, so I can just put him in.
Yeah, that's brutal if you're trying to actually get to the Cubs. Don't have much else here to say about the Cubs. What about the Nats? 11th in top stack, 9th in our ownership projections. They're basically equal. Lane Thomas in double digits at 12% in the leadoff spot. After that, everybody's at 5%. Is there something here for you against that ownership of Steele?
I have some trouble getting there just because the Nats suck for one, and for two, Steele doesn't give up a lot of power. Lane Thomas leading off at 2,400 does give you some upside. He's fast. He's close to a league average hitter. Luke Voigt at 4,100 has plenty of power. Joey Meneses, who is like 30 years old and just now getting to the major leagues, apparently just homers every time he steps into the box. I don't expect that to continue, but he's only 2,700. It's another lineup where like it's really difficult to just point to multiple guys that I like. Lane Thomas is whatever. Luke Voigt looks pretty good, but as a whole, it's just a really unappealing team.
Yeah, I have basically like I'm neutral, like 2 to 3% of most of these guys. It's not fun. I don't like it. On paper, I wouldn't be mad to get more just because of Steele's ownership, but I'm not trying to prioritize getting to this shitty Nats team. So I'm sure they'll go crazy because I'm pretty sure I called the Rockies shitty yesterday and they had 12 runs before I blinked.
Yeah.
Cash options in this one? Stuff from the
I don't
Cubs
really
side,
think
I'm
so.
Guessing.
What'd you say?
Ortega, maybe?
Yeah, I guess Ortega at 2,700 potentially. Actually, I can do that right now. Let's see.
And going back to the Brewers Rays game, the cash option is absolutely Brandon Woodruff.
Yeah.
And then probably nothing else.
Yeah, so I mean, if I just look at my like top projected lineups, Yan Gomes is actually getting in. The Cubs are getting in there a lot more than I expected. Yan Gomes, Ortega, and Ian Happ are the three that I'm getting to here and there, primarily Gomes and Ortega.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, Happ is sort of just like Happ and Reyes both sort of just fit in to some lineups. Ortega and Gomes look like guys that would be extremely likely to play.
Alrighty.
Oh, and Justin Steele actually is getting in there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, from an ownership perspective, Steele at 21, I'll even say Blackburn at 16, Walker at 23, Manaea at 21, Ray at 20, Cortez at 20. Like there's not that second guy that just pops off where it's just like this is very clearly the other two guys.
Right. And there are some relatively expensive bats that we want to get to.
Like I could see running projections across the board from different places and having Woodruff plus a different guy and it being very different for that second spot. I don't have anything else here.
Neither do I.
I do, however, have PrizePicks to talk about, presenting sponsor of this show. If you go to PrizePicks, click the link in the description, use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, you will get up to a $100 instant match deposit bonus. Just take the free money. It's really that simple. If you could take $100 and have a risk-free opportunity to then immediately have $200, you should just do that. Take advantage of these deals every time that you can. You're building parlay cards. You're trying to hit over-unders on props. That's most of what you're going to see at PrizePicks. Plenty of tools at Stokastic.com that can help you out there. I'm going to hit up Adam with a couple pitcher fantasy scores. We're going to kick it off. Taijuan Walker, 37.5.
Same trend as always. Under.
That one's a very clear, wild under.
If I like them on DraftKings, I don't like them on PrizePicks. Is pretty much how things work.
How about for the Brewers? If I ever actually type the word Brewers incorrectly, Brandon Woodruff. Wow. Over under 41.5.
Under.
I agree. Snap under, same as before. Jeffrey Springs, 26.5. That I'm staying away from.
That's an over for me.
I got him at 26.7. I'm like right on the number. So that one I have to avoid. Let's see. What else do we got? Have we talked about that? Josiah Gray. I forgot we got Cubs and Nats yet. Gray is 27.5.
We have him at 28.5. So I guess over if I had to choose.
The first two that we did, Walker and Woodruff, were the two biggest gaps that I've had so far. And then finally, who are we missing here? Justin Steele, over under 30.5.
30.5.
I will take the under on this one. Just go play PrizePicks, everybody. Again, AWESEMO. You can see it on the banner at the top of the screen. $100 on your first deposit.
And if Eric can win, anyone can.
Very true. Make sure you're watching friend of the program, Eric Lindquist's PrizePicks videos, because he really has been destroying them.
Yeah, and it's been going on for a while.
Weeks.
Like
yeah,
when I hung out with
weeks.
him in LA, like at the beginning of June, he was destroying PrizePicks, and I don't think it has stopped.
No, every day that I'm looking at it, he's hitting 4 or 5 or something like that, or taking the clean sweep and getting just annihilating them. So 3.9 run implied total for Oakland, 3.6 for the Angels. Paul Blackburn and Touki Toussaint, who I did not know was on the Angels, going in this one. Blackburn, 17% owned. He is 5,700. He's the other pay down option alongside Steele. Toussaint, 2% owned at 7,400. How are you feeling about Blackburn here? Didn't think there'd be a day where I was just like, man, Paul Blackburn looks pretty good.
Yeah, he looks fine. I mean, he's facing the Angels, which is kind of always going to make you look okay. He's getting 16% ownership, so he's getting a little bit less than Justin Steele in that price range. He's not a very good strikeout pitcher, 19%. Like, it's not awful. 3.9 xFIP, but again, it's a cheap pitcher. He's facing the Angels. There's a bunch of strikeouts there. He looks like a good value. The ownership, I think, is pretty much in line with where it should be.
Yeah, I can't disagree. That's basically right where I am as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just play myself some Paul Blackburn. Used to be the Paul Blackburn would be the question. Who's going to be the Paul Blackburn of the night? The shittiest guy on the slate that can actually win the slate. Turns out it's actually Paul Blackburn for today.
It is.
Can you see yourself getting to Toussaint? The park works. The matchup works.
Yeah, and he's not getting any ownership. So he's worked out of relief in his 2 appearances for the Angels, but he went 4 innings and 4 1/3. So I don't think you have like substantial pitch count concerns there. He is $1,200 more expensive than Steele and $1,700 more expensive than Blackburn. So I think those are the 2 probably biggest concerns. But he did throw 85 pitches his last time out. He's always been a very enigmatic pitcher. Like he was a highly regarded prospect for Atlanta. He's always just walked too many guys. That's been the case again this year as well. 8 starts, 13 appearances at AAA for the Braves, 41 2/3 innings. He walked 13% of hitters. Then at AAA for the Angels in his 3 appearances, 17% walk percentage. His 2 appearances in the majors for the Angels, 21% walk percentage. The flip side to that, though, is in those AAA appearances for the Braves, 27.5% strikeout percentage, 27.3 in his 2 appearances this year for the Angels, 23.8% for his career. There is certainly upside here on a pitcher that is just getting no ownership. The most likely case, though, is that he ends up not being very good because he just cannot throw strikes.
Yeah, I didn't really get to him, and I'm not mad about it. I got him in for 4 innings. Could he go a little bit longer? Potentially. Just not the guy that I need to get to today.
Like I do think he is on DraftKings. I think he is the most under-owned pitcher on the slate.
Agreed.
But he's still just not particularly likely to be optimal.
Right. Like I think he's pretty clearly ahead of Junis and Zook. And like after that, everybody else is at least 10% owned or so. So, well, actually, I mean, I think that Nestor Cortez is the most underowned guy on the slate, but we'll get there in a little bit. That's a very different play as well. So, not really what we're talking about.
So I agree with you. Cortez is underowned. I just don't think it's by the same margin, but it's because like Toussaint's getting like 2% ownership, and I think it should be like 9%. So 9 divided by 2 is just going to be a bigger number than anything Cortez can get.
Absolutely. Let's talk about this game from a hitting perspective. I guess we'll start on the A's side because that's where more ownership lies. They are 4th in ownership, 6th in our top stack tool. These teams are basically the same in top stack. A's are 6th, Angels are 7th, separated by 0.2%. We're just getting more ownership to the A's because they're cheaper, and they have 4 guys with MPEs, at least in the projected lineup that I have. We'll see if that's what we actually get. Do you like Oakland against Toussaint?
I do think it's a pretty high upside spot, and they are not very expensive because they're not very good. It's another team where like it's difficult to point to a lot that I like. Seth Brown at 3,600 looks pretty good. Murphy, Laureano, you can always play those guys. But it's more so just Toussaint's got a really wide range of outcomes. Like he could just come out there and walk the bases loaded before he even gets an out, and the A's throw 4 or 5 runs on the board in the first inning, just through singles, doubles, walks, and it's a short enough slate where that could still get you there because you only have 12 offenses, so you may not have an offense on the slate that throws off 12, 13 runs or hits 5 home runs or anything. So I do think you can make that case for them. They're still really bad. Like, I think the most likely outcome is still probably that they have a 3.9 implied run total. I was gonna say the most likely outcome was probably they score like 4-ish runs or something.
This was the team that I am most under the field on, at least based on the crunch that I just ran previously. Least amount of exposure in total going to the A's for me. For the Angels side, I'm basically neutral. It's not much to write home about here. I mean, both of these teams, just generally speaking, offensively are offensive. Neither one of these teams are very good outside of the fact that Ohtani exists. And Ohtani is pulling ownership, 17% owned, has the MPE, looks good. 3 MPEs in Angels lineup as well. Do you like the Angels more than the A's?
No, I think Blackburn's just a better pitcher. 3.9 xFIP is solid. I mean, I certainly like Ohtani more than I like anybody on the A's. Yeah. Taylor Ward still looks pretty good at 3,900 as well. Jared Walsh has power at 2,900, but as a stack, I would lean towards Oakland first.
Based on Steamer, which just putting it out there, I don't really have a dog in this fight. 4.16 projected FIP for Toussaint, 4.12 for Blackburn. Would not have expected that.
Yeah, agreed.
I would have assumed Toussaint was a bit higher than that. So separated by 400ths of a run. A little surprising. So we know Ohtani's the best bat here. Are there some cash options here? Laureano, Murphy, obviously Ohtani, if you get there, is clearly good.
Yeah, I mean, Ohtani's always fine. I don't really think so. Like, I was pretty much getting to like Mets, Cubs, Padres.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Just I saw Laureano and Sean Murphy pulling some double-digit ownership, so it's at least worth the talking point. 12:53. You said lock is 10, 110?
Yeah, 110.
All right, so 16 minutes to go until lock. Hit that like button if you haven't done it already, because one, it just helps us out. We're at 560 viewers, 93 likes. I think we're bringing you guys the goods. I got to hit you guys with the promo code here, and that promo code is preseason. PRESEASON. Thank God I can spell, because this would be really terrible if I were just trying to spell preseason and I was spelling it like SEESON or something. Just really terrible. Preseason is the promo code. One big word, all caps. This is the final day for this deal. You can get our preseason NFL projections for $1 if you use this promo code. That's it. It's that simple. The price is going up. Price of the brick is going up tomorrow. It's $1 today if you use the promo code preseason when you sign up. If you're into the NFL and you're one of those crazy degenerates that wants to play preseason NFL, you are in luck. We will have projections for you. That is not my cup of tea. I don't play preseason NBA, and that's one I know.
Yeah. I played preseason NFL the other day, just played cash. Was pretty underwhelmed just by the fact that I basically was playing a 1v1 with like everybody at any reasonable buy-in.
Yeah.
Then I was really excited about it because my 1v1 got a rushing touchdown, and I was like, oh, I'm going to win easily. And then their 1v1 scored like, 15 points in the fourth quarter.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Padres and Giants, 4.9 run implied total for the Pods, 3.9 for the Giants. Sean Manaea and Jacob Junis. No ownership going to Junis at 6,900. 22% ownership going to Sean Manaea at 8,700. I was under the field here on Manaea, and I am getting to the Giants bats in this spot because they are free. And I'm sort of interested in that, plus the ownership going to Manaea. Not that I want to target Manaea, but I like the Giants more here. Talk to me about Manaea, though. Is that a guy that you're looking to get to?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough because like he's a good pitcher, but like you said, the Giants are free as well. I think I'll probably end up getting to both sides of this game.
Yeah.
We have the Giants with a 10% chance of being the top stack, only 7.5% ownership, also a 20% chance of being the top value stack. So we have them as the number one value. Manaea pulling 21% ownership, 20% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Yeah, I mean, I think I probably just end up getting to both sides here. Obviously, with the Giants, you also have to keep in mind that some of these guys probably will not be in the lineup by the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm going to end up having them both as well. I think I'll end up being just a hair under on Manaea, but at least getting to a bit of the San Francisco Giants, at least per everything that I looked at before. I've got my crunch running right now. I assume whatever I'm running is going to be whatever I end up putting in, unless we get a lineup in the next 2-3 minutes and I could quickly flip it around. Junis at all? He basically joins Zook in guys that I won't have.
Yeah, those are the two that I am certainly the least likely to get to.
Yeah. Now we need to talk Padres bats. Number 2 in our top stack tool. Very difficult value proposition here, but number 2 in ownership as well. We know that the talent is here. Is this a spot that you can see yourself loading up? How does the Padres look to you in comparison to, say, the Mets?
I think I get to a lot of the Padres. I'm still running my crunch right now, so I'll have a better answer in a few minutes, hopefully. But it looks like I have the Padres basically being correctly owned, and I have the Mets being overowned.
Okay. Based on what I'm seeing, at least on my previous crunch, I am half fading the Padres and getting to a couple other teams over the mark. So I'm thinking you and I are going to have very different days.
Normally not a bad thing for me.
Depends on the sport.
I'm trying to think of what sport you could be referring to.
I mean, MMA went great this past weekend.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I didn't want to bring it up. Soto, Machado, certainly in the cash game discussion here for San Diego. Are there other pieces here that you would see?
I mean, those are the two that obviously really stand out first, and we don't have their lineup yet either. But Josh Bell at 4,600, Drury's just been hitting the hell out of the ball this year. Cronenworth at 4,500 looks good. I really think just top to bottom, you can play whoever you want from this lineup.
Yeah, I think so too. What about the Giants side? Any individual bats that stand out to you? How much do you think you're going to have here? Like, do you think you end up over the field on a 7.5% aggregate on Giants? Is this a neutral spot for you?
I think there's a good chance I end up over the field because of the combination of value and that they're projected to go a bit under-owned. I think it's just going to push them up because that basically just checks off every metric that I use to build lineups. So yeah, I think there's a good chance I end up getting to more Padres or more Giants that I'm kind of comfortable with here. Like individually, like just looking at what is showing up in Fantasy Cruncher for me as my lineups get built, I'm not getting to a lot of individual Giants at a high rate, but I just think once I pare down those lineups, they're going to get pushed up. They're going to pair easily with the Padres. They're just going to be really, really useful pieces. And then I just have to hope that they get to Manaea before they get taken out of the game.
Let's close it out with the Mariners and Yankees, and then we could open it up to some questions. 3.5 run implied total for the Mariners, 3.7 for the Yankees. Robbie Ray and Nestor Cortez. These guys are basically priced exactly the same. They're basically owned exactly the same. I am getting to a lot more Cortez than I am Robbie Ray. I think part of the reason is because Robbie Ray is facing the Yankees and Nestor Cortez is facing the Mariners. What do you want to do here with pitching? Do you see these guys as equals? Do you see a difference? Where are you at?
I see them as really close. We do have Ray projected slightly ahead in terms of ownership ahead of Cortez. I think that Ray's ownership is about where it should be. I think Cortez's is a little bit lower than it should be. This is just a really weird game for me, though, because it's one of those games where I think that you're just getting basically all sides, like not getting quite enough ownership or at best being correctly owned. Like, I think that, like I said, I think Ray is correctly owned. I think Cortez is a little bit under-owned. I also think the Yankees are on their own, and I think the Mariners are under-owned.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, but it's Cortez like we get that a lot. It's just like the prices aren't super appealing. The matchups, regardless of side, aren't particularly appealing. And so the median projections just aren't going to be really good. But then when you think in terms of range of outcomes, you still have a massive ceiling for somebody like Robbie Ray or Nestor Cortez. You still have a massive ceiling for the Yankees or, still a high ceiling for the Mariners as well. So I think it's just one of those games where the median projections don't tell the whole story.
I don't really know why Cortez was the guy pushing the hardest. Ownership, I think, is going to matter big time here. The difference between 21% to Ray and 17% to Cortez, what I had in before, I think was really just sort of twisting that dial a little bit more to Cortez, just because I think that whole area looks very similar. I'm exporting my crunch right now, so we shall see if anything has changed, because this is going to be at least what's my placeholder for what we've got moving forward. I think I'm dumb. I think I'm really dumb.
So what'd you get for bringing up MMA?
I know. I don't think I pasted over the Reds lineup correctly.
The only difference should be Aquino and Almora, I think.
Almora in or out?
Almora's in.
Almora is in.
Yeah.
Oh, I did paste over. Whew. That was about to be really annoying. I just didn't want to have to care. It was the red, so like not exactly a difficult thing to fix. I'm not going to have a lot of those idiots anyway, but I didn't want to deal with it either. Let's talk bats here then quickly before we end up at lock. We've got the Mariners side of this one coming in 11th in aggregate ownership. We've got the Yankees side 5th. They're also 5th in top stack. I assume you're getting to more Yankees than Mariners.
I would assume so as well.
Judge 21% owned. Nobody else crossing the double-digit mark. Where do you stand on some of these Yankee guys? What are you expecting here?
Yeah, so I mean, Judge obviously is just always going to be a good play. Ray does give up power. It's a park that helps to minimize power. That certainly plays to his strengths, but he's a good strikeout pitcher that does also give up some power. Righties this year, 144 expected ISO, 193 actual. Lefties, 148 expected ISO, 218 actual. So it seems like he's, kind of run bad there, but at the same time, throughout his career, he's always been somebody that will give up some power. So I do like Judge individually. I think that goes without saying, assuming he's in the lineup. We don't know if Rizzo will be back or not. Josh Donaldson at 4,100 looks solid. Torres, I think, looks solid. So it's just, Judge clearly is the one that stands out, but the rest of the Yankees are good too.
Yankees are my number 3 stack. I'm basically just over on a couple teams and neutral on the chalk. So I'm like 2x the field on the Giants, 2x the field on the Brewers, 2x the field on, a little 1.5x the field on the Yankees. A lot of stacking there. I'm filling out with Mets and Padres, jamming Woodruff, jamming Cortez, getting to Paul Blackburn. I'm pretty happy with my exposures right now.
Yeah.
How are things going for you?
Couple minutes running my last set of lineups.
All right. I'd say sum it up, but I think you're going to be able to sum it up in a bit. Do you see any signs of what you're getting right now that you could sum up for the viewing public?
I'll just have a better answer in 2 minutes.
All right. Chat, if you got any questions, feel free to drop them in right now. I'm uploading my lineup, so I'm feeling pretty good. I can go ahead and hit questions until Adam is ready. So YouTube chat, if you've got anything, hit us with it. Premium Discord, if you've got anything, hit us with it. I've got my lineups uploaded. I'm feeling pretty good here. Nothing in chat right now. Yeah, 50% Woodruff for me, 48% Cortez. If we're talking aggregate ownership in general, 19% to the Giants, 15 to the Brewers, 14 to the Yankees. Giants, Brewers, and Yankees making up 64% of all of my 5- and 4-man stacks. Padres are the next closest, but I'm basically neutral. Biggest fade for me now is the Mets.
That would be my guess. Well, the Mets part is actually kind of my guess at how things look. Because like I said, I have them with like the same optimal percentage as the Padres, and the Padres just getting less ownership.
Yeah.
But yeah, waiting on Fantasy Cruncher to give me like 20 more lineups, and then I'll be about ready.
The Mets are basically my Cardinals today in that they're filler. I've got 3 5-mans, 3 4-mans, but 15 3-man stacks of the Mets, 12 more 2-mans, of 51 off. So they're showing up everywhere, but I'm not getting a ton of them as a primary. And that's exactly how I would want to build this out, given where their ownership is.
Yep, I think I agree with that.
Perfect. Other big fade for me, I'm not getting to the A's, who are pulling ownership under the field on the Padres and Cubs, but I am still getting to some Padres main stacks, just light on the Cubs as well. But Giants and Brewers are going to be the 2 teams that really drive everything for me. Yankees to a lesser degree, but I'll need them to go crazy as a team. I really like my Cortez ownership, just assuming that he is 17% owned. I have him as the second highest projected pitcher. So sounds like I'm probably in the mild minority there.
I have him in that ballpark, but I just have like a bunch of pitchers in that ballpark.
Gotcha. 3 minutes, 30 seconds to go, folks. Make sure you're getting your lineups in. You don't want to be left without having them in, that's for sure. Let's see. Aaron Hines says Mets are number 1. Wait, FanDuel has an 8 p.m. game in this early slate? That can't be right. That can't be right, can it?
It's FanDuel. I don't put anything past them.
Mm-hmm. That feels impossible. They sure do. White Sox and Royals, 8-10 start. I assume it was supposed to be early.
I have no idea.
And they moved the game. Good for them. That's just incredible.
Yeah.
Just Paul Blackburn placed on the 15-day DL. Is that real?
What?
A tweet just came out that I saw from Underdog. So all right, what's the swap there?
I only have 8%, so not super worried. All right, so
I have 25.
I'm basically all in on Wood. I have like 90% Woodruff, Steele at 37, Walker at 24, Cortez 12, Manaea 11, Gray 9, Blackburn 9. As far as offenses go, Padres, A's, getting some Brewers. Adames is my like third highest owned hitter. Yeah, getting Giants, Wilmer Flores, Longoria. Yeah, so it looks like a lot of Padres. Let me see.
What do you expect them to do with Blackburn here, even at 8%?
Figure it out when I can look at something.
Yeah.
I
don't really like the fact that I have 25%.
I basically just don't have the Mets. I'm around neutral on the Yankees. I'm over on Milwaukee. I'm over on Oakland. I'm over on the Padres. I'm over on the Giants. Didn't get anywhere close to the field on the Cubs or the Angels, which I assume just means Ohtani.
So I assume we're in pretty similar spots here.
Yeah. Oakland, highest owned. San Diego, second. They're very close. Then a gap. Milwaukee, third. Very close to San Francisco, 4.
Oakland is your most exposed team?
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, I don't feel great about it.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Especially because I kind of think the lineup might end up not looking like it's projected.
Jed Lowry designated for assignment. Don't know what team he's on.
Oakland, so that helps.
Is he starting?
What?
Was he supposed to be starting?
No. I mean, not in the lineup I used. But that takes away one of the options.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to pack it in here. We hit our mark. I'm going to go try to figure out what I'm going to turn Paul Blackburn into.
Did we actually get confirmation on that?
No. Only place I've seen it so far is Underdog, but I also haven't.
Yeah, Underdog said it.
Yeah, but I haven't looked at I haven't looked for any additional information.
Well, I meant them as confirmation because at first you said you hadn't seen it from them.
Oh no, you must have misheard me. That was where the only place that I saw it.
Oh, okay.
I was just at first dancing around saying Underdog, and then I was like, that's not the same thing. I can say Underdog and not the other sites that are in that same column for me. Guys, thank you for joining us. Another early slate in the books. That one went pretty quick. So good luck on this early slate. Hit that like button on your way out the door. Deeper dive, live before lock, all that good stuff coming up later. Enjoy yourselves. Get your Paul Blackburns out of your lineups, folks. Don't know who we're going to replace them with, but you definitely don't want to keep them. Peace.